All right, so today during our session, there was a question on this problem where we had a scientist that was breeding mice that were normal, that had a normal phenotype, pink eye phenotype, and an albino phenotype. So in our session today, we didn't really have time to go over and answer the whole problem because, as you can see, it's a long problem. So I'm going to kind of break it down step by step for you. So the very first thing I did was I wrote out this relevant equation. And without this equation, you are not going to be able to solve this problem or any problem like it. And this is just the equation for a chi-square test. So we say that chi-square, which we write as x squared, equals sum of the observed minus the expected observations squared over the expected. And that'll make sense in a second. You see I have it written down here, but first let's go and do the next step of that problem. So next I just wrote down some extra information we were given, which is relevant to this problem. We know that pink eye is recessive and that albino is recessive. And the problem states that the scientist, when he crosses them, he gets a normal F1 generation. Remember, P means parental, F1 is the offspring of the parental generation, and then F2 is the offspring of the F1 generation. And so we know that if F1 is a normal phenotype, which is what the problem says, then it must have gotten that way by being completely heterozygous. So we had a pink eye individual and an albino individual, and we can make up alleles or genotypes for them based on this information. So if we know that both of these are recessive, then pink eye, I put two little p's, so that was going to be recessive, and that codes for pink eye. And little a, as we know, that's for albino, that's recessive. So we have a pink eye times an albino individual to get a normal heterozygous individual. Now, he said, or the problem says that the scientist is going to cross the normal F1 generation with a completely recessive little a, little p, mouse or mice. So all these mice are going to be both pink eye and albino. And that's important because that's how we determine what the expected amount or what the expected proportion of phenotypes are. So I put this down here to show that we have a big A and a little a allele that have a chance of being inherited. So that's from the F1 generation, big A, little a. And then we also have big P, little p alleles that can also be inherited. So when we do these Mendelian crosses, I'm sorry there's a train going by, I don't know if you can actually hear that, but when we do these Mendelian crosses, we get these phenotypes. So half the time we're going to get big A, little a, which is right here, and then half the time we're going to get little a, and these are genotypes, sorry, not phenotypes. But you can think about them as phenotypes too in this case. And then the other half the time we get big P, little p. I started putting lines under here because I was getting confused which one were big and little because they look so similar. And another half the time we get homozygous recessive, so little p, which again is going to be for pink eye. Now, we have to know what the chance of getting a big A, little a, big P, little p, a big A, little p, and so on individual. So what you do is you just multiply these. So big A, little a, I'm going to multiply by the chance of getting big P, little p, and so on. So we'll do big A, little a times the chance of getting little p. And it just turns out that in this case, it's not going to be like this for every problem, but in this case, we have a 1 out of 4 chance of getting each phenotype. However, the problem in the book states that it's hard to tell an albino pink eye individual apart. So they gave us the observed phenotype as albino and pink eye. So they kind of combined them. So what I did is I combined them as well. So we have 1/2 chance of getting albino or a pink eye albino individual. Now, that's how we're going to find our expected proportions, but that doesn't tell us the expected amount of individuals that we, well, expect to get when we cross them. To do that, we're going to have to go to this side of the board. So on here, I wrote down the observed. This is exactly what the book gave you. So you don't have to calculate anything there, but I put the genotypes by them to hopefully help you understand which ones they went with, just to kind of get a better idea of what we're looking at here. And then down below, I calculated the expected frequencies. So to find expected frequencies, first you have to know the total frequency, or the total amount of individuals you get. The problem states that 152 were obtained, and we need to find out how much we expect to obtain out of that 152. Well, that's really easy, because right over here, we say that we expect 1 out of 4 individuals to have a normal phenotype, or to be big A, big P, little p. So you just multiply 152 by 1/4, or divide by 4 like I did. And I wrote because there's a 1/4 chance of getting a normal phenotype. And so 152 over 4 is 38. Same thing goes for the pink eye phenotype. Now, the last one, we have albino / albino pink eye. Because like I said, the author, or the scientist, was kind of combining those into one group, I guess. So we have 152 over 2, which equals 76 individuals. And that's going to be the chance of getting an albino or an albino pink eye. Again, we took the 1/2 here, since we had to combine these, multiplied it by 152, or we divided 152 by 2 to get 76. Now you have all the information you need to solve this problem. You just plug them into this equation. Remember that epsilon, which is this E-looking thing, just means sum. So we have observed minus expected squared. So observed was 12 for normal, right there. Expected was 38, which we had to calculate right there, squared over 38. And then we do the same thing for the pink eye phenotype and the albino / albino pink eye phenotype. And you add all those together, and finally you get a chi-square, or an x-squared value of 33. Now, an x-squared value of 33 is actually pretty high. Ideally, you want your chi-square value to be 0, because that means if we add 12 minus 12, so a chi-square value means of 0 means that everything happens exactly like we thought it would. That hardly ever happens in nature, though, because there's so many different chances of things that can occur. But just to show you the math of it, if we had 12 observed individuals and 12 are expected, that would be 0 squared. 0 over anything is 0. And same thing goes for this one, and that would give us a value of 0. In this case, it's 33. 33 is a very high x-squared or chi-squared value, and so we can say that these alleles are not sorting independently. And I will tell you right now, this is one of the hardest problems in the textbook that you will find. It's definitely one that takes some work, and on Monday, or whenever I see you next, which should be Monday, I will give you some more problems to work with, and hopefully they're going to be a little easier, but hopefully we can work through those, and hopefully you'll understand a little better. But I hope this video helped.